University of Sydney Vice-Chancellor Mark Scott says Jewish students will have to tough out being uncomfortable in the face of anti-Israel slogans defending the response of Australian universities to pro-Palestine encampments. The USyd Vice-Chancellor confirmed to the Daily Telegraph that chants such as "from the river to the sea" and calls for an intifada against Israel do not, in his view, meet a threshold for disciplinary action. Meanwhile, the Australian National University is investigating students who allegedly used the Nazi salute, some even declaring their unconditional support for Hamas. And at the University of Queensland, a terrorist flag was seen flying on campus. Joining me now is David Adler from the Australian Jewish Association. David, thanks for joining us this evening. What do you make, firstly, of Mark Scott's comments that Jewish students will have to tough out being uncomfortable?
Frankly, Danica, it's pathetic. Can you imagine such a comment being made by any other minority group that is persecuted on university campuses? Just suppose people were persecuting Aboriginals or gays or Asians or anyone else. He would be probably sacked the next day for failing to uphold the basic human rights of having a safe place on the universities for all the students. This is blatant anti-Semitism on our campuses. We have many Jewish students who feel unsafe to attend university campuses, who have switched to remote learning, and it's un-Australian. It's outrageous, and I think there's been weak leadership on the universities.
I absolutely agree with you. Why won't these people in charge of the universities condemn this anti-Semitism? I mean, we've got, as I mentioned, students declaring their unconditional support for Hamas, which is extraordinary, yet they are not being called out.
I think that, unfortunately, we've got to look at the top. And the current Albanese Labor government has been dreadful on this issue. And the Education Minister, Jason Clare, is missing in action. He is, at the end of the day, responsible for the tertiary education sector. And if you want to take a rather cynical political view, and perhaps it's justified, Jason Clare's electorate of Blaxland actually has one of the highest Muslim populations for any electorate in the country. So maybe it's seen as expedient to throw issues concerning Israel, concerning the Jewish community under a bus, rather than potentially create some electoral difficulties in southwestern Sydney. I've actually come to the view that this is a motivating factor.
Well, that'd be largely disappointing if it is, because we've seen so many Jewish Australians marginalised right now, and it's just awful to see. Now, David, we know that these encampments are taking place across the world, and we've actually seen vision of a Jewish student being blocked entry to UCLA in the US because he's Jewish. This is what happened.
This is what they do. Everybody, look at this. Look at this. I'm a UCLA student. I deserve to go here. We pay tuition. This is our school. And they're not letting me walk in.
Oh, this is horrific, David. Is history repeating itself in your view here?
It's not just my view, but yes. We have had a couple of Holocaust survivors approach us and tell us that this is echoes of the sort of things that the Hitler Youth movement did in the 1930s and 40s. It's a bit like the brown shirts. There's a famous photograph, and it's been published in the media today, of a chain of Nazi brown shirts blocking the entry to Vienna University. And we're seeing this again. The big lesson out of the Holocaust was supposed to be never again, and that means never again in all its elements, including the persecution of Jewish students at universities. It's totally uncalled for. It's unjustified. I mean, we don't mind people having different political views. That can occur in a democracy. But we are now seeing a transition towards Nazi-type strategies from these Hamas supporters on university campuses.
Yeah, and who would have thought we'd be here in 2024? It's just shocking.
Right.
David Adler, good to speak with you. Thank you very much for joining us.